responds with, "We're not going anywhere." And he says, "What are you talking about?" And he says, "Look." And he looked up ahead of him. He says there was a big raptor-type bird standing in the middle of the pathway. He said it was standing about 3.5 feet tall. He says the odd thing about it is that it had feathers sticking up off the top of his head that was like a horned owl. "Well, shoot the damn thing." He says, "I just put 2 slugs into him." He says, "Give me that gun." Takes the gun away from him, puts 6 rounds into that bird, and it doesn't move. So he says, "Well, let's just go around it." So they tried going around to the right, and the bird hops from one rock to another and blocks their way. So they try to go to the left, same thing. Nephew grabs a stick and goes up and pokes the bird with it. And the bird reaches up with one of its talons, tears the stick out of his hand, throws it off to the side. I know this sounds pretty incredible. I still struggle with it a little bit. While they were up there, they heard a noise that he described as a table saw binding up on wood. And of course, the first thing I think of is a cat call, but who knows? The story that they were following up on, there was a guy who, ex-military, who apparently he was looking for a cave, and he ended up at this odd feature. He found a cave. The only way he could get into it was to descend from above with the rope, threw the rope over the edge, climbed down, swung back and forth until he got into this cave. While he was in that cave, he found a bone that looked to be human, so he grabbed it. He never would elaborate on what was in the cave. He just said there's some very strange things in there. He ended up taking that bone to an anthropologist, I believe it was, and they found a musket ball in the bone. He says when he jumped out of the cave to grab the rope, he said something strange happened. He said the rope just went as stiff as a pipe. Didn't describe it much more than that, other than he climbed out. And while he was there, and I don't know if it was before he went to the cave or after, but when he was going into the entrance of this odd feature, he said he noticed up on the left side deer heads decomposed at different periods of times that had been thrown up on the ledges. He mentioned hearing the same sound that was heard by the previous individual. Described it very similar. While he was there, something started throwing rocks at him. At first he thought the rocks were just kind of rolling down off the hill for whatever reason, but after having several of these rocks come flying out of the bushes at him, at one point, while he was in there, he saw footprints that he believed might belong to a creature that he didn't even believe in, Bigfoot. But in the end of his story, he said, he says, "I've been to Afghanistan. I was there in Desert Storm." And he says, "and those places didn't scare me." He says, "This place scared the hell out of me. I don't want to go back."